folks. Testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3. I don't have very much time. I just got off the darn road yesterday, and I'm tired. But something told me to wake up and scan the Twitter land hallways, and I stumbled upon this space with this Twitter space with somebody in there speaking on the stage and saying that you have to be indigenous because of the Black Law Dictionary, international law. Okay, I happen to join a co-op and they covered a little bit of this, but I'm not going to say I know it all and I have a clue as to the Black Law Dictionary understanding. But one thing I do understand is that America had slavery for 246 years, and it was called Negro slavery. It wasn't called Black American slavery. Let's say it together. It was not documented as Black American slavery. It was documented as Negro slavery for 246 years. That's on the books. That's recorded in history, in the archive, on birth certificates, marriage license, death certificates. So where in God's name is something called indigenous on a birth certificate? Where is a marriage license claiming that a person is indigenous on a marriage license or a death certificate? See, people are starting to wake up and realize America has bamboozled all of us when they lumped us under a term called Black American and African American. Now, these indigenous people who are running around here claiming indigenous, they have a separate claim, but they want to conflate their claim and their identity with the Negro ancestors who were slaves for 246 years. Now, I have heard these persons in spaces explain that the evil people came to them and told they people they need to go to a reservation. Those people were separate from the Negroes on slave plantation. They were separate. Let's all say it together. The people who the evil diabolical human beings who went to those Native Americans, American Indians, or indigenous, whatever they were going by, they were living in a separate population on this earth. The Negroes were on slave plantations. It was 3 different populations in existence. Those walking around free, those on the slave plantation, and those on the Native American tribes. So these sorry human beings want to say that, well, when the evil people came to their people and told them they needed to move to a reservation, some of them stayed behind and they got reclassified into Negro. Whose fault is that? Who in God's name fault is that? That you think you're going to be in the 21st century and try to paint a narrative that everybody got reclassified into Negro. No, your people got reclassified into Negro. Negro slavery was documented for 246 years. That was a separate population of people. If your people got lumped into Negro because they chose not to go to a reservation, you don't get to paint a narrative in the 21st century that everyone got reclassified into Negro. Because there are millions and millions and millions and millions of persons who have Negro on their birth certificate. It's on a mother and father census report, grandmother and grandfather census report, great grandfather and great grandmother census report. So y'all better go figure out how y'all gonna bring y'all case to America that you got reclassified. But every time I hear this, the main question comes to my head. Big Chief, CR the Great, are you in the process of helping America erase over 50,000 patents? Are you in the process of helping America and the OMB and the whole world erase down the drain over 50,000 patents and inventions? Are you in the process of helping America erase 246 years of hangings? Big Chief, I need you to answer that darn question. Are you in the process of helping America and the OMB wash down the drain 246 years of lynchings? I need you to answer that darn question, Big Chief. and all you persons who want to identify as indigenous, who want to paint a narrative that we are really indigenous, Native Americans, Aboriginal, whatever y'all want to put on at any given day. My birth certificate has Negro on it. I don't know what your birth certificate has on it. I don't know what your family tree went through. But you persons told on yourself. I think it was Sonny G that I heard break it down in very simple words, that he explained it very clearly. He was not stuttering. He sat on the stage and said, these evil, diabolical people came to his people and asked them to move to a reservation. Some went to the reservation and some stayed behind. Those persons who stayed behind, I don't know if they got reclassified into Negro. But that's not Negro ancestors' problem. That is not Negro descendants' problem. That is okay, folks, how we doing this early morning hour? This is Who Did You Boycott today? I need to be under the bed. I really do. I was just looking at the time. It's 1:14. I know good and darn well I need to be under the bed. But once again, here I am having to respond to these crying adults. It's just unbecoming. It's quite embarrassing. It's downright embarrassing to witness the display of depravity. I just don't even know no other word to call it. Adults wake up and tell themselves to open the room and put on a display of spectacle that cannot be measured. It would never be measured. Luke, y'all little Uncle Luke, and Stephen Johnson, and the hard black truth, somebody named Honey, of Bahima, good old Bahima. I can't even get the darn word out my mouth. Who I'm leaving out? Black 666. I remember him as Black Greatness 666. That's how I encountered him on Twitterland. Shortly after I joined Twitterland, about around the second month, he popped into one of my spaces when I was playing the audio book, The Destruction of the Black Civilization. All these Pan-Africans need to go listen to that audio book and educate themselves. I have already listened to that book more times than I can count. But I'm going to have to probably listen to it another 15 or 30 times to try to process all the information in it. The author of that book spent 16 years of his life, almost went blind. You would think that every African that have the ability to get on the internet should listen to that audio book. They really should listen to that audio book, because it really, really, really starts at the point when the original persons of the continent that they call Africa today, it wasn't called Africa initially. It was not called Africa initially. It just was not called Africa initially. The original people of that landmass, I can't remember what the author said the name was, but the original people of the continent, I'm going to say the continent, because I kind of don't like that word Africa, because it came from the enemy. Since it came from the enemy, right out of their little sorry mouth, they invented a word called Africa. They just invented it. They just reached up in the air and pulled down a word called Africa. Well, one thing I want to say is that I have much love for the continent. As far as I can make out, after listening to the author that spent 16 years of his life, almost went blind. The man almost went blind trying to dig up the history so that most of us could someday listen to the audio and be better informed and compare it with other sources. So you may say to yourself, why should I believe one author? I'm a big believer that you compare sources. You compare sources, and then the final thing that have the final decision for me is my own lived experience. Nothing trumps that. My personal lived experience. I'm gonna try to read. I'm gonna try to educate. I'm gonna listen to other folks, but the final decision is gonna come from my own personal lived experience. Nothing. No, none of these folks that folks look up to, Malcolm X and MLK and on and on and on. I don't look up to nobody. I don't look up to no one. I can respect what they have done in their lifetime. I can give them the respect that they are due, but I don't look up to no one. Only person I look up to is my mother. I made that decision in high school when I was just seeing how folks were just losing their head over idols and this person is my super idol. I ain't never been brain dead with that, thank God. I learned that. I figured that out back in high school. Only person that ever walked this earth that is my role model is my mother, and nobody can't come close to her. So why am I gonna sit up and tell myself that I idolize Marvin Gaye, I idolize MLK, I idolize Malcolm X. Only a person that I can say with a straight face that really made me think about a great deal is Harriet Tubman. If I had to pick one person that could halfway get to where my mother is, it would be Harriet Tubman. But no person on this earth, no person that has walked this earth will ever take the place of my mother. My mother was and is my world. May she rest in peace. That's what I have. That's the life that I have lived. My mother was and is my world. That's why I can function like I do. That's why I had the ability to navigate. If it wasn't for her, I know I wouldn't have made it. I would have never made it. Ain't no doubt in my mind, I would have never made it. So I'm not one of those persons that idolize all these famous people. No, I don't idolize anyone. I don't use the word white supremacy. Nobody is supreme to me. I'm uno. I'm supreme to me. That's right. It's just as simple as that. Alquilin is uno, supreme to herself. It's not complicated. It's not rocket science. I'm supreme to myself, and nobody can replace that. But let me get to these brain dead human beings that's running around here. What I started to say about the continent. The continent is the only superpowered nation in this world. I pay respect to the continent as being the real only superpower on this earth. Because God made it that way. That was the birth of black civilization, as they call that word black. It was the birth of black civilization, as folks like to use. I don't care to use the word black because my skin is not black. My skin is not black, and I'm not going to sit up there and look in the mirror and lie to myself. I'm just not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. So Luke and Steven Johnson, and Uncle Luke, y'all folks want black so bad, it don't mean anything. It really don't. I don't know why you're crying over it, because the only reason why you're crying over it because you know that it means something in America. You wouldn't be crying over it if you were still in Jamaica. You wouldn't be crying over black if your 2 feet was planted in Jamaica. You're crying over it because it means something in America, because America uses it as a weapon. That's what they do. That's what that word means to America and your enemy. It means a weapon, not the word black. It's a weapon, because the only reason why white and black was invented and pulled out the air was to mistreat other human beings. Can anyone think of any other reason why those 2 words was stamped into society? Can anyone tell me, send me a DM as to why the word white and black, what purpose do they serve? They were put into existence around the time that the evil, diabolical, subpar human beings realized that slavery was getting ready to come to an end. Right around that time, because they've been wrapped in white for a little over 203 years, so backdated for all you smart people. They've been wrapped because somebody, a lady by the name of Sage Dream, did the research one night when we was in the Negro space. See, we dug deep into research in the Negro space. And one night we were just all sitting in there talking to each other, and she went to do her little research and came back and gave us the info. They've been wrapped in white for well over 200 years. So when you backdate that 200 years, and you land somewhere around 1840. 1840, let's all say it together. Around 1840, the slave masters and the evil demons reached up in the air and pulled down 2 words. One was white and one was black. They could see the writing on the wall that slavery was getting ready to come to an end. They wanted to still feel superior. They wanted to feel superior. So they said, we're going to stamp 2 words in society, white and black. They could have never predicted how thorough it would have worked. I am totally convinced of that. I would go to my grave knowing that for a fact. At the time that they came up with those 2 words, they could have never have imagined how effective, how harmful it was going to officially do the damage that they wanted to do. They could have never predicted it. Never predicted it. But we got proof of it. We got concrete proof of the damage and the harm and the evil and the mistreatment and the discrimination and the racism and everything that you can come up with that those 2 words accomplish. That's why every pale, pink-skinned person that come to America wrap themselves into white, because it's a benefit. Why would any human being wrap themselves into white unless it came with a benefit? It's like they wrapped into a cocoon. I never forget that movie that I watched called Cocoon. That's what I think about when I hear these subpar human beings saying out their mouth they white. Ain't nobody white. God didn't create any human beings white. It's just a made-up thing. It's made up. It's something that folks who want to mistreat and look down on other human beings convince themselves it's a real thing. But it's not. Because as far as I know, God birthed each one of us into an original bloodline. And those that want to dispute that need to take it up with God. For all you intelligent, common sense folks who want to dispute that white and black is not a real thing, take it up with God. That's what you need to do. Just call them up on the phone. Call God up on the phone and ask him the question directly. God, did you birth any human being into the world belonging to white? God, did you birth any human being into the world belonging to black? I just would like to know. I think I already have the answer. It's simply biology. It's just plain old simple biology. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. It's just simple biology. One little word, biology. Biology. Good old biology. Uncle Luke. Simple biology. Uncle Luke. Steven Johnson. The Hard Black Truth. Honey. Bahima. Black Greatness 666 is simple biology. And you folks are embarrassing when you get on a stage, a public audio app, and try to argue against biology. It's pitiful. It's downright pitiful. It really exposes your character. When you can get on a public app and try to argue something that cannot be argued because of biology, it's just pitiful. It's downright pitiful. It's right downright pitiful. It's, most of your folks is expose yourself. You can just hear the jealousy spewing out your mouth with every word that come out. It just spews out. Jealousy, jealousy, jealousy. I'm jealous. I'm jealous of those Negroes and Black American descendants of Negroes. I want to be them. I want to be them. I don't want them to feel like they're better than anyone else. Nobody's trying to be better than anyone else. But that's what you hear. That's what your little two ears hear, because that's what you want to hear. That you think that somebody wants to be better than you. That's anti-black. What is anti-black? Is it anti-black for a person to want to have their birthright? What's the answer there? What is the answer, Uncle Luke, Steven Johnson? What is the answer to a person wanting to fight for their birthright? Because each one of us have a birthright. Each one of us have a birthright. And you persons want to get on a public app and try to tell another human being that we are all black. All because it benefits, it serves your agenda. Oh, we are all black because when we get pulled over by the policeman, we all get treated the same way. Again, that's a bald-faced lie. Policemen know the difference between ethnicities. You may have the same skin tone, but they know the difference. It's their job to know the difference. Just like any other job that you do in life. It's your job to know your job. Well, I don't think the policemen are going to walk out there and try to function in their profession without knowing the different ethnic groups in that society. It's necessary for them to know that. See, it's part of the job. It's part of the job. Now, from time to time, there will be mistaken identity. That will happen. But it's the policeman's job to know the different ethnicities. Because all ethnicities don't respond the same way. They don't think the same way. They have not had the same lived experience, life struggles. So it's their job. So they can go back home. They can go home alive at the end of their shift. It's their job to know that. Same way it was my job to know telecommunications. I had to know my job to do my job. Policemen have to know their job. They have to know the collective ethnicities in that society, or they're not going to be able to do their job very well. They're just not going to be able to do it. So y'all little lying narrative that we all get treated the same way when we get pulled over by policemen, they know who you are. They know by your accent. They know how your body features are shaped and everything in between. So you can stop that little lying narrative because it's pitiful. I don't know why anybody would even want to try to fit a narrative to say, well, we are all black because when we get pulled over by Jim Crow police, we are all treated the same way. It's a bald-faced lie. It's a bald-faced lie, and stop doing it. Because America, aside from the policemen making sure that they know the different ethnicities, America have to respect nations. They don't have to respect Negroes and Black American descendants of Negroes because they never have done it. They don't recognize or respect the Negro nation that the Negro ancestors carved out for 246 years. L.B. Johnson told America, there's two nations over here. That's sorry human being. And I don't think anybody had a gun to his head to make him say that. So I don't know why those words came out of his mouth, but I'm sure it wasn't really for the benefit of Negro ancestors. But L.B. Johnson told the world, there's two nations in America, a Negro nation and an American nation. But you immigrants that come here don't even know about that. I bet most of you haven't even looked it up. I'm going to bet my life on it that most of you don't even know that he ever said that. But then you are over here trying to tell the people of the land mass that you know the evil system better than they do. I could never go to Jamaica and try to pretend like I know their system, their environment, their history better than they do. I don't care if I live there 50 years, 70 years, 100 years, I could never do it. But you folks have the audacity because you are born in America, but your mother and father and your grandfather and grandmother and great-great-grandfather and great-great-grandmother do not come from this landmass. You can't be proud of your bloodline history. No, you got to try to claim, you got to try to accept the white man's definition of Black American. See, that's another thing that separates us. Negroes and Black American descendants of Negroes, we just don't accept what they put in print. We never have, and we never will. That's why we keep telling you persons, certain ones of you, that we are different. Our minds are different. We process stuff differently. Just because America has put this system in place, this system has been in place for over 400 years, do you think I have to swallow all of it? Do I have to swallow it? Do I have to operate it within it? Yes, I do. But do I have to accept it? Do I have to repeat it like a broken record? Do I have to be indoctrinated into just saying I identify with it? No, I don't. That's why God gave me a brain to think for myself. God gave me a brain to think for myself. Man makes laws. Men and women makes laws, but I still have a brain to think for myself. Black American and African American means nothing by that definition on the OMB. Anybody can take 5 minutes and go read the definition. That definition on the OMB that's supposed to describe a Black American or African American does not describe a human being, because no human being is birthed into the world belonging to a racial group of Africa. That's no such thing. So y'all really are so foolish. You don't realize how foolish you sound saying, well, America says you are Black American, so that makes you Black American. America tells you that you Black American, so that makes you Black American. That's why America has destroyed your countries. That's why America has propped up these corrupt governments in your country. That's why America wants to genocide Negroes and Black American descendants of Negroes, because we are the last line of defense. They know that. They know it's very easy for them to convince immigrants that come to America to buy what they're selling. They know, they clearly know after 14 years that we're not going to buy what they're selling. That's why they have to import other bodies. Because if I was a human being, I am a human being. Say if I know I'm a human being. Okay, I got two people in front of me. Let's just all follow along here. I have two human beings with brown skin. One human being descends from a ancestor slave, and the other human being does not descend from that ancestor slave. I'm going to want to deal with that one that don't descend from an ancestor slave, because I just would not, I would prefer not to have an interaction with that person who descends from a slave, because I know every time they walk out their door and have to lay eyes on a descendant of a Negro ancestor slave, it just rings terror through their whole body. That's it. It just comes over them. It just comes over them. They don't feel that when they interact with a Jamaican, and they shouldn't, because they didn't. Jamaicans were not made slaves in America. They were made slaves in Jamaica. See how that works? It's very elementary. It's quite elementary. That is the main reason why Negroes and Black American descendants of Negroes, we try to explain this to every immigrant that have brown skin. You can never fully comprehend the system that you are a part of now. It takes years and decades to try to unpack it. And then you're still only halfway there. You're still only halfway there. So it's quite insulting. It's quite insulting for a person who come from another nation to try to tell the people of that nation that they came to, I know your environment better than you do. I know your history better than you do. It's quite insulting. But you don't care. You don't care. America only had immigration for one reason. That's a weapon. A weapon. That's the sole purpose it was signed into law, to be a weapon. After slavery ended, they had to come up with other weapons to mistreat descendants of slaves. They had to come up with another weapon, multiple weapons to mistreat descendants of slaves. And so, folks started flooding in from other nations. And as those folks flooded in from other nations, America said, I'm going to choose them over those descendants. I don't know why folks pretend like they don't know about the history of how the Negroes and Black American descendants of Negroes were beat and killed just to try to get a job. Just to try to get a job. Just to try to get a job, they were killed and murdered. Where was you immigrants then? Can anybody help me out? Where were you at? Where were your ancestors at when that was going on? I don't never hear y'all talk about that. Y'all spent all this time talking about being Black American. Where were you at when the Negro ancestors and Black American descendants of Negroes were getting murdered just to try to get a job so they could have food to eat and clothes on their back and a roof over their head? Where were you at? See, this how y'all got all this, all y'all can make, y'all can cry about all of this and that, about how Negroes and Black American descendants of Negroes have all this anti-Blackness towards you. Where were you at? Do anyone kindly want to tell me, where were you at? Were your 2 feet planted on America's soil? Was any person in your bloodline 2 feet planted on America's soil when that was going on? Because that's my bloodline history. See, that's my bloodline that's been passed. That trauma has been passed down in my DNA. Has that trauma been passed down in your DNA, Uncle Luke, Stephen Johnson? I'd just like to know. Because that trauma is in me. It got passed down to me. So while you're on this app being jealous and envy of what the Negro and Black American descendants of Negro want to delineate for their birthright, while you putting on a display of just downright pitifulness, I want your answer. Where were your family member when Negroes and Black American descendants of Negroes were getting murdered just to try to get a job? I would like to know where you were. Seeing as how you just, all you folks so gun-ho that you are Black American, where were you at? Where was that family member of yours at when Negroes and Black American descendants of Negroes were getting murdered just to try to get a job? I like to know. Seeing as how y'all spend all this energy saying that we just need to unify. We can't unify with persons who don't understand the scars and the trauma that happened on this landmass. Now, I can't pretend that I understand the scars and the trauma that Jamaican people went through. It didn't get passed down to my DNA. I can't pretend to understand the trauma and the scars of Haitians. It did not get passed down to my DNA. I cannot pretend to understand the trauma and the scars of Bahamas or Ethiopians or Nigerian. It did not get passed down in my DNA. Negro trauma and scars got passed down in my DNA. Uncle Luke, I don't think it got passed down in your DNA. Stephen Johnson, I don't think it got passed down in your DNA. Black Great 666. Black, what is that darn name that man called himself? Black 666. The hard black truth. I don't think. I want you to show me proof. For all you folks who claim that you have a family member that was here by 1865, I want proof. Let's just end these conversations once and for all. Show your paperwork. If you got the paperwork, there's no need for any more discussion. If you got the paperwork, show the paperwork, and we can end all this back and forth. You persons don't have the paperwork. That's your problem. You know you don't have the paperwork, but you wanna claim that you suffer the same way that Negroes and Black American descendants. You'll never suffer the way. You'll never be able to suffer the way that Negroes and Black American descendants of Negroes, because America see you different. Yeah, they see you with brown skin and dark brown skin. They see that. You have to probably be blind not to see that part. But it's a difference, because they know it's a difference. They more than likely know whether or not they enslaved your ancestor in America. Now, I'm sure they played a part in enslaving your ancestor in Jamaica. I'm sure they played a part in enslaving your ancestor in Haiti. I'm sure they played a part in enslaving your ancestor in the Bahamas. I'm sure they played a part to what took place on the continent. They had their hand in it all the way. Total evilness. But it's a difference. It's a difference. And as soon as we can accept the difference, then we'll hopefully be able to combine our number count and push back against this evilness. But as long as we have folks running around trying to steal another person's birthright, it will always be a separation, because a human being is going to fight tooth and nail until they die for their birthright. You ain't gonna never get a person to unify with you if you trying to steal their birthright. You got to be delusional. You really got to be delusional if you think that's going to ever happen. If you really have convinced yourself that somebody is going to want to unify with you when you can't even simply respect their birthright. See how that works? It's very simple. You're trying to tell another human being that we all black, that we all came from Africa. We all came from Africa, so we all the same. Well, based on that author's book of 16 years, there was a Negro land over there, and then there was other original people of that landmass. There was a separate landmass called Negro land. God didn't put Negro land there and never put human beings to habitate it. So whatever you want to try to paint, whatever narrative that you want to try to paint, there's a Negro land on that landmass. And then the original people of that landmass, they all came from different bloodlines. They all came from different bloodlines. That's okay. The world is not going to come to an end to respect that. But you persons are so desperate. You're so desperate to black flatness everybody that you can't see past your nose. You can't see past your nose. That all you see is a color of skin. A color of skin and the identity of black. The enemy came up with black. The enemy came up with white. So I can't think for anyone else, but I have listened to the research. America has been harming Negroes for 54 years. 54, say it together. 54 years, because they lumped them under a term called Black American and African American. What person do you think is going to want to identify with something that has harmed them for 54 years? What crazy person is going to volunteer to do that? Anyone have an answer for that? Because the research has been done. We got concrete proof of how America has systematically harmed Negro descendants for 54 years. That doesn't include you persons who have a nation in Jamaica. That doesn't include you persons who have a nation in Haiti. That does not include you persons who have a nation in Bahamas. That does not include you persons who have a bloodline on the continent, Nigerian or Ethiopian, and on and on. That's America specifically harmed Negroes by lumping them under a term called Black American and African American, because they knew if they lumped all brown-skinned persons under the same term, they're going to get fewer resources. Those Negroes are not going to be respected for their birthright. They're not going to be afforded human rights. They're not going to be afforded respect. They're not going to be afforded protection. They're not going to be afforded a fair share of resources. America has made it very clear. The only reason why they signed into law immigration was to harm Negroes. That's the only reason why they did it. And they have been very successful for well over 150 years. They have been very, very, very successful for well over 150 years. So you persons that get on these stages and try to paint a negative image of Negroes and Black American descendants of Negroes, you sound pitiful. You sound ungrateful. You sound jealous. And the audacity to try to say that we disrespecting our ancestors. Our ancestors, Uncle Luke. Our ancestors, Uncle Luke. For you, all you educated folks, our ancestors told Lincoln and Sherman when they signed Special Field Order 15, they put Negro in that document. Uncle Luke, Stephen Johnson, the ancestors who signed the contract of Special Field Order 15, they told Lincoln and Sherman to put Negro in that document. Go read it. Because they very well could have put the word African American in that document. It's nowhere in there. Not nowhere in there. Uncle Luke, go read it for yourself. Seeing as how y'all folks seem to know it all and know it better than the folks who come from the bloodline, go find the word African American in that document. Those ancestors who had made it out of slavery, they clearly knew their blood may be traced back to the continent. But what they also knew is that they had carved out 246 years under a term called Negro. And they weren't going to walk away from that sacrifice. No, not by a long shot. That's where you brain dead folks don't get it. Those slaves, each one of those slaves that went through that 246 years, they sacrificed under a term called Negro. That's why they didn't abandon it when they got their freedom. They could have. They could have very well told Lincoln, we don't want the word Negro nowhere in that document. They could have done that. They could have done that. They could have said, Lincoln and Sherman, we want you to put the word black in that document. No, Lincoln and Sherman, we want you to put the word color in that document. They didn't do that. No, Sherman and Lincoln, we want you to put the word African American in that document. They didn't put it there. They could have said, Lincoln, Sherman, we want you to put the word mulatto. Didn't put it there. Didn't put it there. So between 1865 and up to when the folks went to the UN and declared Negro genocide, why didn't they change it? Why didn't they change it? That was around 1950. Around 1950. So between 1865 and 1950, Uncle Luke and Stephen Johnson, you mean to tell me these persons were confused for all those years? They were confused. So when they put all that work into that presentation for the UN, it's a very, very thick book. They put on the front of that cover, Negro genocide. Why didn't they put black genocide? Why didn't they put African American genocide? Why didn't they put all these other terms? Because they knew. They knew what was sacrificed under a term called Negro. 246 years of wealth that no one else can claim because it was It was documented under a word called Negro. The infrastructure was built off the backs of those Negroes. That's why they didn't abandon that word. But see, you persons coming from another nation can't relate to that. You can't understand that. You only are able to understand it from a surface level. You don't know what bone, sweat, and tears and murder that went into that word Negro. All you care about now is a word called black. They didn't document slavery under black. They didn't document slavery under a word called black. Did they? It was not called black slavery. Was it? Uncle Luke, Stephen Johnson, those 246 years was not documented as black slavery. It was not documented as African American slavery. It was documented as Negro slavery. Over 50,000 patents and inventions are recorded under the word Negro. So you ungrateful human beings want that bloodline to walk away from all of that sacrifice just to be black. Are you kidding? Are y'all serious? Are y'all really serious? No, y'all playing. Y'all think y'all playing with folks who don't have a brain. We already 20, 30, 40, 50 steps ahead of you. You're not going to play us for a fool. You're not going to play us for a fool and think you're going to wipe out our ancestors' sacrifice, all not to get your feelings hurt. Also, your feelings won't get hurt because you're not seen as black. Go be your black that your enemy want to see you. I'm not black. I can tell you that and anyone else. I'm not black. My skin tone is copper tone, tan, brown. It's nowhere near black. It's nowhere near black. But see, what y'all think a lot of y'all think y'all are smarter than most folks. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. So save your time. Because as long as one Negro is walking the face of this earth, you're gonna have to deal with that Negro. Too much blood, sweat, and tears and bones and murder done went into that Negro, that term Negro. I don't know about what happened in each of your nations. I'm only fighting for what happened in this nation, on this landmass. I ain't got nothing to say about what happened in the nation of Jamaica. It's not my place. It's not my place to speak on their history and their lived experience. It's not my place to speak on Haiti. It's not my place to speak on the Bahamas and their sacrifice and their experience of slavery. It's not my place. I didn't grow up in that environment. Those persons who grew up in that environment, it's their place to speak on it. I can only speak on the environment that I grew up in and my ancestors. See how that works? See how you be respectful of each other's lived experience, but you folks don't care about doing that. You think you're going to defeat your enemy by black flatness. No, you're not going to defeat your enemy by black flatness or Pan-Africa. If you had a backbone, I would say, I know this may offend some folks, if you really had a backbone, you would shove black down your enemy's throat. And see, and just stand back and see how their little world begins to crumble. It's already starting to crumble on Twitter land. They literally are starting to delineate. 30 years ago, you could have never have thought they would say that. They would never be there. You know what made that possible? It was Negroes and Black American descendants of Negroes that made that happen. Otherwise, they would have continued to wrap themselves in white. But just like everything else that we have done and accomplished on this landmass, that's a victory. Whether or not they ever pay reparations, that's a victory, because they know they can't stay wrapped in that little white cocoon anymore. They're going to have to face reality. They're going to have to face their evil. That's what they're going to have to do. Negroes and Black American descendants of Negroes forced that. I don't think I heard of any immigrants fighting for that. That wasn't a concern of any immigrant that's not a descendant of a Negro. That didn't concern any of you. And it really, to be fair, you don't have the scars and the trauma again. See, it's always going to come back full circle. No matter how you try to argue it, it's always going to come back full circle. What's inside of you, that DNA and those scars and trauma that's inside of your body, that's where it comes back full circle. No matter how you try to make a false argument, it's always going to come back full circle to what's inside of your body. The scars and trauma that's inside of me are not inside of Steven Johnson. They're not there. The scars that Steven Johnson have are not inside of me. The scars that Uncle Luke carry are not inside of me. The scars that I carry are not inside of Luke, Uncle Luke. It's just a fact of the matter. But folks don't want to respect that. No, they don't want to respect that. But I'm going to say what I started to say. If you really want liberation, shove black down the whole world's throat. If you really want to have a true liberation, or what you want to call it, freedom, tell these diabolical human beings that you are shoving black down their throat, that you are officially abolishing it. They're going to crumble, because it's been a thorough weapon. Oh, it's so thorough. You literally got folks running around here doing all the hard work for the enemy. They just want to be black. They just got to be black. They just want to be black. They just got to be black. And you know the sad part? Folks have done a thorough job of conflating things. Black pride and black power is different. It's separate from Black American. But folks did a good job of doing a number on folks and conflating the two. Me being proud of black pride and black power is something that no one can never take from me. They can never take that from me unless they cut me open. That's the only way, and they still wouldn't get it. That can never be taken from me. That's a lived experience. When you have lived something, no one can never take it away from you. Once you have lived that, it cannot be taken from you. America knows that. The whole world knows that. All they want you to do is to be convinced that you're black. Because all around the world, anybody with brown skin is mistreated only because of their skin. Only because of their skin color. No matter where you go in the world, any person with brown skin are at the bottom, are mistreated. Are they at the bottom? Or they are mistreated? Or they are at the bottom? That's the whole reason for the word white and black. Why would I want to continue to identify with something that has harmed me?